Now, here's a familiar story. Joburg Mayor Mpho Phalatse is facing a motion of no confidence debate. That's after the courts returned her to the position following her ousting in September. The ANC managed to garner enough votes to win the city, but it's unclear who the EFF will side with today. It's business as usual, though, for Phalatse. However, she will be unpacking the city's finances and outlining her next move. Let's take you there live now to that particular briefing.
To retain the position as the mayor and continue on doing your work in the multi-party government. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm interviewing at the start. Madam Mayor, the question I have is about your collection strategy. So you have been accused of neglecting collecting rich areas. Apparently, there's a private hospital which owes the city. You wrote off debt from a private school. So are you protecting rich areas and only focusing on maybe those in poor areas to collect debt from? What's your strategy? And I know for certain that Heaven or Shaba doesn't believe you're going to make it. What do you make of the fact that your coalition partners don't believe you're going to come back as mayor? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
From the business day. Mayor, you say that if council doesn't approve the report to access the 2 billion rand TPSA loan, you might find yourself in a non-easy financial situation. What does that mean in layman's terms? Will you still be able to pay staff salaries, honor your debts, and also provide continuing service to the bank? Thank you.
We'll pause there. I just want to acknowledge the MMC for Group Corporate and Shared Services, Councillor Lee, not EM, over to you.
Thank you very much. I will take some of the questions and I will ask the MMC for Finance as well as our Group CFO, who are both here, to assist with some of the questions. MMC Not, if you could also please take a seat.
They tried to make me.
So was this a farewell speech? Absolutely not. My focus is not even on those motions of no confidence. I think we've come to a new normal in the city of Johannesburg, where with each council meeting you may face a motion of no confidence. We've come to get used to it as something we may need to deal with on a month-to-month basis. Of course, this is something we want to take to our rules committee. There's something wrong with that picture. In Parliament, as you know, you may not bring a motion of no confidence if it's defeated. You have to wait another 6 months before you can bring back another one. The rules of council need to be reviewed to ensure there's stability in our council. However, right now, my focus is service delivery. My focus is securing this loan for the 6 million residents of Johannesburg so we can enable the city of Johannesburg as an institution to render the services that we've pledged to render to our residents, and we can do good by our workers as well, pay their salaries, pay our service providers. That is the focus. So no, definitely not a farewell speech, but of course it is a memorable day. It was this day a year ago that I took over this office, that I sat here for the first time as the newly elected mayor in the city of Johannesburg. How confident am I? Again, it is a numbers game. We've got the multi-party government and our partners are on site. We've got 6 political parties, the Democratic Alliance, the ACDP, Action SA, the IFP, the UIM, the Freedom Front Plus. We all together and we're going in as one block. We are hoping that we will get support from the other side. We know that the ANC and the minorities might be working together. We don't know how the EFF will vote, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how things unfold today. But like I said, that is not the focus. Our biggest focus is to stabilize service delivery, and hence we're focusing on the need for this 2 billion rand loan to come through. In terms of our collection strategy and whether or not we're protecting rich areas, MMC, I think I will give that to you to respond to. And perhaps let me just talk to the fact that apparently Herman Mashaba doesn't believe that I'll make it. I don't know that to be true. He has not said that to me, so I would rather not comment on that and focus on what's before us, which is service delivery, and that I believe is the most important thing right here, right now. And if I can just also ask that MMC and GCFO you respond to what exactly will happen if the loan is not paid. MMC.
Thank you very much, EM, and thanks to the colleagues for being here, and thank you to all of the press and who are here today. Our collection strategy definitely does not favor anyone that those of us would consider to be privileged. The strategy specifically is aimed at what we call our platinum and gold customers. These are businesses and residents whose property value is greater than 5 million rand. And those who have property at that value who owe the city money, so we are talking to those who owe us more than the current amount, and we are asking them to repay their debt. And these are people who have no queries with respect to what they owe, or if there is a query, we then settle that query and get our privileged customers to pay what they owe. There's no fear and there's no favour. I have not heard about a private hospital or a private school that have had amounts written off. What has happened with all schools, all properties that were previously categorized as education, whether they are private education facilities or public education facilities, with respect to the property rates change that took place, and their rates increased dramatically on the 1st of July. What we have done for those, all of them, private and public schools, we have applied a monthly rebate so that that increase in effect is no more than the current inflation rate. That is what we have done, and again, if that institution was categorized as education, they receive that particular write-off. With the current budget and the current annual property rates review, we will be looking at those categories again and have an answer for the next financial year. Paying salaries, absolutely we are paying salaries. We pay Eskom and Rand Water within the 14 days that we have to pay them. So if you think that, if you consider that we buy water from Rand Water, we pay them what we bought from them within the 15 days that is legally required, and more than half of our debtors book of money owed is people who haven't paid for water. I think I would like to ask CFO if he would like to add some further detail to those questions that have been asked. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Executive Mayor, and thank you, MMC. And good morning to the members of the media. As the EM has said, if the loan is not passed, the city will find itself in an uneasy state of financial affairs. But I do want to clarify that does not translate to the city being in financial crisis in any way. The consequence of the loan not being passed will be that the city may run the risk of not meeting some of its liquidity reporting requirements. But insofar as the key expenditure that the city incurs, the Treasury Department of the city has come up with a process to ensure that these are prioritized. These include bulk purchases, so for water and electricity, salaries, finance costs, loan redemptions, third-party payments, which include payments to service providers, our VAT to SARS, rentals, and our fleet. And I just want to emphasize that the city of Johannesburg is amongst the very few cities in the country that do not have outstanding accounts to both Rand Water and to Eskom. What we owe to both is only current. There is nothing that is beyond 30 days. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're also joined by the youthful MMC for Human Settlements, Councillor Mungisi Malas. And we'll take another round of questions. I'll start with Moloto. Please keep it short and sweet for us.
Thank you. Executive Mayor, I have just 4 short questions. You currently are writing debt. How much do you plan to write off in total? The debt that cannot be recovered altogether. But there was also an accusation, I think several weeks back, by one gentleman who identified himself as the advisor of the minority party, who said that apparently there's an insurance organization in Sandton and a mall in Sandton, and their debts were actually written off. If you can just verify that. But in terms of this culture of non-payment, you were quoted as saying that there's also a political element. If you can just clarify I think it was during the annual conference of Southern Africa and Europe cities, a conference of some sort. And what would constitute a crisis? Because clearly you don't want to admit that you are in a financial crisis. In your explanation, what exactly would mean a crisis? Because clearly you want that loan, short-term loan, desperately. Lastly, Executive Mayor, you are calling your detractors the corrupt cabal. But we know that you, Executive Mayor, wrote a letter to the acting municipal manager saying that he must appoint Nexus, which is a company that you wanted to investigate one official by the name of Floyd Clinic. And I'm not aware if there's any law. If you can just tell us what law guided you as the politician to be involved directly in the procurement of a service provider. And we understand that as much as you wrote a letter to retract that initial letter, my understanding is that that very same company, Nexus, which by the way was not even in the panel of contractors, which you acknowledge in your first letter that you are aware they are not in the panel, but they must be appointed. They were appointed even when you said they must not proceed. Where is the report? What is it saying? But what is your relationship with them? Why were you so determined to see them appointed?
Determination is a strong word. Next question.
Madam Mayor, do you think Helen Zille is a problem to you? You know, I mean, you want to speak to the EFF, and you know it would be lovely to have a coalition with them, but you know she's hell bent on not working with the EFF. And look, working with the EFF would save you. Do you think Madam Zille is a problem? Thank you.
I'm going to take a last hand. Going once.
I just want clarity on the 2 billion rand application before council. Are you bringing it today, or you know?
Madam Yam, over to you.
Let me start with the last question. Yes, indeed. In the last council meeting, we did bring the report asking for the DBSA loan to be approved. In fact, it wasn't the first time we brought it to council, it was the second time. You'll recall that the first time, the speaker blocked it from serving in council. We then wrote to the speaker explaining why it's important for us to secure this loan, and we requested a special council meeting, which she did set up, and that's the meeting which unfortunately rejected the report, where we did not get support, and we are going back again today. And like I said, we've done a bit of lobbying with several political parties to ensure that we have enough support today to see it through. So yes, it will serve again today in council, and hopefully it will go through. I just want to touch on the political questions, and I'll again defer to the MMC and the GCFO to deal with the more technical stuff. The culture of non-payment. Yes, indeed, I did say there was a political element. In fact, we are hearing it. This is feedback from our prospective ratepayers or non-payers, rather, who are saying we do not want to pay because we were promised free services pre-1994. And unfortunately, nobody went back to them and said there's no such thing as free water, free electricity for all. And they're still holding on to that promise. And today, some of them still refuse to pay their bills. So we continue to educate, we continue to raise awareness on exactly how a municipality is run, how we raise funds, and how we're able to deliver services and develop the areas in which we operate. So that's the political element I'm referring to. In terms of the Nexus situation, I've addressed this, but let's go back to it because you're asking again. Now, there was an investigation at the time into somebody who was then the acting city manager. And this investigation went to council. In fact, council said there must be a further investigation following a preliminary investigation that suggested that the then acting city manager could have been found wanting. And the council resolution read that council authorizes the executive mayor to ensure that there is an independent investigation. Now, The problem came in the interpretation of the council resolution, where, and perhaps the resolution could have been crafted better. In retrospect, I think we could have crafted the resolution better, but that's precisely where the problem came. Now, why Nexus? How did we come to that conclusion? Firstly, what does independent look like? Here we're talking about somebody who was an acting city manager. We've got a panel of law firms in the city that do investigations that would have been put together at the time when the then acting city manager was in charge. So in other words, he would have overseen the putting together of this panel. And if you're looking for independence, ideally you want to go entirely outside of the city. And what that looked like for me was to have the SIU come in and take over this matter. Now, I then said, I think we need to refer this to the SIU. It's completely outside the city. The chances of interference by either myself, other politicians, the person that was being investigated, or other officials in the system would be zero, because it would be outside the system. Unfortunately, I was then told that it would be a very complicated process, and that it would require presidential proclamation and so on and so forth, but that they often use the services of a company called Nexus. I have no relationship with Nexus. I don't know who they are, and that's how that name came about. But of course, like I said, the interpretation of the council resolution was incorrect, and upon realization, an immediate retraction was issued. And I'm not sure why we overemphasizing the initial letter where there was a retraction, but it's politics, so we understand, and that's the retraction. Now you ask, how is it that Nexus was still appointed to do the job? That's a very good question, and I asked the same question myself. I asked the then acting city manager, why did you proceed with Nexus even after I had issued the retraction? And he said he made his own independent assessment. And like I said, and perhaps this backdrop is important, we're in a city that's infested with corruption, corruption hidden in different parts of the city.
All right, those are live visuals there from Braamfontein, where Mpho Phalatse has said she isn't very focused on the no-confidence debate and actually says the rules should possibly be reviewed so they don't allow for those never-ending no-confidence motions. You would have also heard there Dr. Phalatse saying what's pressing, as you would have heard, is the acquisition of the 2 billion loan that is much needed. Moloko Moloto is monitoring that particular briefing for us and will give us the very latest.